relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. We are here today with Jason Feifer. He is the editor-in-chief at Entrepreneur Magazine. He's also the host of a really popular business podcast that I listen to all the time called Problem Solvers. Jason, how you doing today, man?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to chat with you today. Before we dive into this topic, we're going to be talking about three common mistakes that you see folks making whenever they're trying to become a contributor at a larger publication. Obviously, in your context, it's an entrepreneur. But before we dive into that, would love to just hear just a little bit of background on you. Kind of what does your day-to-day look like between all of the different things that you're handling at Entrepreneur?
My day-to-day is a horror show. I don't even know how to describe my day-to-day. The thing that I love about this job, and the reason why it's absolutely my favorite job I've ever had, favorite job, I don't know what word just came out of my mouth, was every day is totally different. And the demands of this job are so multimedia. For example, I started the morning, I came here, I edited a piece, I ran down to tape an internet television thing. And then I came up here interviewing some people, and then I got you. I'm doing a podcast, and then later I'm running out for a meeting, and then later I'm going to try to record some of my own podcasts. Like, it's just so many different things. I got so much coming at me at the same time, which I just adore, because I've reached that stage in my career where doing the same thing over and over again is depressing and boring. My last job, I was editing features over and over again, which is something I had aspired to do. And then I got to a position where that's what I was doing. I was editing long form features every month, and I was like, "Is this it? Is this actually it?" And so this is the exact opposite of that.
I love it. And tell us a little bit about Problem Solvers, because obviously people listening to this, I think, are going to get a ton of value out of that show. So just kind of real briefly, what's that show about?
Yeah, so that show, it's about entrepreneurs solving unexpected problems in their business. So each episode focuses on one entrepreneur, one specific problem, often a business defining problem that they faced and how they solved it. And it's not a Q&A show. It's more of like a radio produced show. So it's me doing a narration, and then you hear from the person throughout. And I do that so that I can make sure that I really dive into and explore the themes and the challenges and the way that they overcome them. Because the thing is about entrepreneurship, everybody faces similar challenges, but people often don't talk about them. So it can feel lonely, but it really shouldn't, because in fact, the problems are the things that bring us together.
Yep. I love it. Awesome. So Jason, I want to dive into this topic, because I think this is something that I've been seeing that a lot of people are trying to do. Obviously, what founder wouldn't want to be a contributor at Entrepreneur, Inc. or Forbes, or, insert big publication here. Right. And you are coming at it from a perspective of actually having some inside baseball knowledge on how this can happen. And as we were talking about it offline, you said the first mistake that you see folks making is around actually pitching the right person. And so this is something, you get pitched often, hey, I want to be a contributor, but you are actually not the right person to talk to at Entrepreneur. If that's the case, can you elaborate on that? Like, you're not the right person. And I would even think, you being editor in chief, like, oh, that makes sense. Like, he would control who does that. So I guess, who is the right person at a publication that people should be targeting?
Yeah. So I'm not the right person. I just want to stress that over and over again. Because this is what my inbox is like. Half of my inbox is people asking to be contributors. And I got to say, when you reach out to the wrong person at an organization, particularly if you're reaching out to the wrong, especially busy person, delete. Like, you're not even reaching my eyes. Like, delete. The second I see that somebody's asking to be a contributor, delete. So what you need to do is identify which editors work with online contributors? Because most don't.
Mm.
Publications are structured in really like publications like Inc., Fast Company, Fortune, these places that publish professional journalists' work, and then also online contributors, which we think of as, basically not non-professional writers, but entrepreneurs, consultants, whoever. They're usually handled by separate teams. So I work with professional journalists. I don't work with contributors. Sometimes people will reach out to me and they'll want to contribute, and I'll see their value and I'll pass it along to a contributor editor. But anyway, you need to find an editor who will generally have a title that either is like contributors editor or sometimes insights editor or something like that. Track down people who are already writing for the publication that you want to write for and just ask them who their editor is. Like that's the most important thing you can find. And then you want to reach out to that person. Your chances of success by just simply spending the time finding the right person to reach out to will go up infinitely.
I love it. Okay. So this next one that we talked about was inside the pitch itself. You see that people kind of botch this 17 ways from Sunday because they're pitching themselves instead of the idea. Talk to us about this.
Mistake. So listen, we're not, I don't mean to like be harsh about it, but just so that you can understand the perspective of the people inside the building, we're not hiring you. So we don't care about your resume that much, right? Like what we care about is your actual value to readers. That's what anybody who works at a publication cares about more than anything else is value to readers, because that's what we do. We serve our readers. So when somebody reaches out to me or anybody here, as they very frequently do, the biggest mistake they make is that they just pitch themselves as if all we're doing is sitting around waiting for qualified people to reach out to us so that we can give them an opening to write for the site. It's not how it works. Yeah. What we want to do is make sure that you know something and can communicate that something in a way that is valuable to our readers. So there's only one way for us to know that, and it isn't your resume or bullet points. It's by you literally writing something. I did this when I started out as a freelance writer, like a professional freelance writer. I'd write something on spec, which means that you write it and then you try to sell it. It's awful. I hate it. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm telling you to do something that I personally hate. But guess what? I did it. And when I tell people to do this, their chances of success go up significantly. You need to write out something that you think belongs on our site, like top to bottom, even give it a headline, and then send it to that contributor editor. And then when you do, you can give all your background information and your bio and whatever, so that we know that you're not just some person off the street, because we want to know that you're legit. But the evaluation will come purely on what you send. Did you send something that belongs on our site or not? That's where the decision is.
That makes sense. So I've heard people talk about kind of not necessarily writing entire articles, just pitching kind of, hey, these are some headlines that I think would do really well. So
people do that. I know it's funny. It's a funny thing that people do. I mean, listen, journalism is not and publications in general they're not regimented. Everybody operates a little differently. Every publication and every editor operates differently. So everything that I'm telling you is kind of general best practices. It's entirely possible that you could find some editor who, if you just send a series of headlines, they'll assign. I grant that, but I can't tell based on a headline whether a story is going to be good or not. Think about it this way. I don't know if you know this, but in the world of book publishing, there are completely different ways to sell a novel, a piece of fiction, and a piece of nonfiction. A piece of nonfiction you can sell just like a pitch. You put together like a sample chapter and a table of contents, whatever. You don't have to write the entire book. Fiction, you have to write the entire book. You write the entire book, and then you see if you can sell it. You know why? Because the premise of a book and the premise of a novel and the execution of the novel are two totally different things. I could tell you the greatest idea for a novel, but I might have no idea how to write that novel. So nobody's going to pay me to write a novel based on an idea. And similarly, nobody's going to greenlight, or very few people are going to greenlight a story based on a headline. I never do it. And I don't do it when I work with professional journalists either, because I need to know, what is this story going to be? And can you actually communicate the value to the readers that I'm looking for?
Got it. That makes perfect sense. So that the headline isn't, I mean, you're not even really past the starting point at that point, because the execution of what you do with that headline is so much more important. And
Exactly.
that makes perfect sense. I love it. So this third piece that we're going to talk about, this third common mistake that you see people making all the time. I even get this being at our, just getting people pitching, trying to be on our show. I see people make this every single day, where they've shoved me into some sort of sales automation platform that's just blasting out emails to 500 podcasts that they're trying to get featured on. And it's just abundantly obvious that they have no clue anything about what our show is about. They have zero context for what the type of content we put into the world. And that's in the same vein as the mistake that you see a lot of people making. They're just not paying attention to what you guys publish. And so the pitch is, kind of doomed from the start. Can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, it's absolutely doomed from the start. It's a waste of your time. If you're going to spend your time, spend it getting to know one or two publications and then reaching out to those specific editors versus rounding up email addresses for 500 publications and blasting something out. Because I guarantee you, everybody at those 500 publications can sniff out immediately that you do not know anything about the publication and that this was some kind of mass blast. I have people, let's just for a second, like Problem Solvers, this podcast that I do, people pitch me Problem Solvers episodes all the time. And guess what? They don't pitch me a problem. Can you it's mind blowing, right? They'll be like, it's so crazy to me. The literal instructions for what belongs in the show is in the title of the show. And instead people they don't do it. What they'll do is they'll just be like, I'm this successful person. I'd love to be on your show. Or I wrote a book. I'd love to be on your show. And it's like, guys, the show is about problem solving. Tell me a problem that you solved. It's I'm making it so easy for you. Why don't you do it? The answer is because people are lazy. So listen, straight up, if you're listening to this right now, the number one thing you have to do is not be lazy. Like if you are not lazy, you are already heads and toes, or whatever the phrase is, above everybody else. So spend some time getting to know, if you want to write for entrepreneur.com, you want to write for fortune.com, for Inc. whatever, spend some time on the site. Just read through it, see what they're publishing, see what they're doing for their readers. Like if you spend some time critically, if you just ask the question, why did they publish this? Ask that question and then come to an answer. And the answer is what they're serving their readers. So now you understand how an editor thinks. And now you have a better sense of what it is that you can pitch the publication, and the publication will imagine wanting to run. It's that simple. And then think about it. Let me just add like a layer of complexity to it, which is that you want to stand out. So I think sometimes people might go to our site and they'll see that we run a bunch of stories on marketing. And so they'll just be like, oh, great. I'll write a story and it'll be called 5 things to improve your marketing or something. But that is so generic. And we've run a bazillion versions of stories like that it's not going to stand out. It's not going to feel fresh and new. And the editor that you're reaching out to is not going to be excited to run it. So think about how you can differentiate yourself in what is really a marketplace of ideas. Can you offer something that's timely? Can you offer something with some kind of time hook? Do you have insights or some kind of anecdotes or some experiences that will rise above everything else that's already out there? You're competing not just against contributors who are actively writing for us, but you're competing against things that we've already published. So you need to think really creatively and think about what you truly have to offer and then start with that.
That is fantastic advice, Jason. I really appreciate you walking through all those things. So finding the right person, making sure that you're actually pitching the right person. And then in the pitch, stop pitching yourself, pitch the idea, focus on the quality of the idea and actually execute on that idea, write out the article itself before pitching it. And then just paying attention to what they're publishing, looking at and really asking yourself, why did they hit go on this thing? And ultimately it's going to be because it added value to readers. So making sure that your article that you're pitching is aligned to that. And I love the piece about specificity in the content, the 5 ways to grow your business. I just wrote about this morning on LinkedIn. If you saw a headline that was how this company created 47 case studies overnight, or 3 ways to grow your business. What headline are you clicking on? And every single time it's going to be the first one because of the specificity of it. It tells you the specific problem that you are going to learn how to solve, going back to the name of your podcast, right there in the headline. And then long as the content delivers on that promise, people are going to want to continue consuming the content that you read, and the publication knows that. And so to make you a contributor makes sense for them because you're creating content that the reader wants to come back and read over and over and over again. So this is again,
that's a great summary. And you know what? Let me just add one other way to think about this, about when you're reaching out to an editor. People like when their work is valued, and if you reach out and have displayed zero interest in the work of the person that you now want something from, they're going to have zero interest in you. So when people reach out to me, and it's very clear that they have not listened to a single episode of Problem Solvers, that it didn't even occur to them to pull up an episode of Problem Solvers, but now suddenly they want to be on Problem Solvers. Honestly, my feeling, just as a human being, my feeling is like, screw you, right? Like, screw you. Spend the time to listen to an episode before you pitch me. Like, come on. Yeah. But, and it's like, that's not my job. My job is not to be flattered. My job is not to like wait around for people who just like me. That's not my job. But I'm just telling you from a human standpoint, you are dealing with human beings on the other end of whatever it is that you want. And the number one way to flatter those human beings is to pay attention to what they do and to see some value in it and communicate that you see that value. It goes a long way.
And because they are communicating to you that they see value in it, that in essence is a micro way to add value to you. And so the thing that I always talk about, Jason, is this idea of like value first and really letting that penetrate everything that you do. Because when you're not positioning yourselves to add value first to someone and you're just trying to extract value on the front end of a relationship, like that just doesn't work. Ever. Like Gary Vee talks about it all the time in context of dating. Like you don't go to a bar, sit down to a girl and put your hotel key down and say, hey, let's go up to the room and do our thing. Like it just doesn't work that way. Like you have to be able to add value before trying to extract value. And I think that I see it all the time in people trying to pitch me when I was writing for the Huffington Post, even now with this show. Like I get pitched all the time. And it's like figure out a way to add value to me first before just asking me for something, because it just doesn't work. And so I love that you explained that in a much more eloquent way in your explanation. But it's
if by eloquent you mean that I screamed the phrase "screw you."
But it's an accurate reflection of my own sentiment as well, that I feel the exact same way. I haven't quite screamed "screw you" in a mic yet, but I think I'm getting there.
I recommend it. It's cathartic.
Awesome. Jason, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate your time today. If somebody's listening to this, they want to stay connected with you, obviously, subscribe to Problem Solvers on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. How else can listeners stay connected with you and everything you've got going on?
Yeah. So thank you. The number one way is to go to my website, just because that's a good collection of everything there. So my name is Jason Feifer. My website, believe it or not, jasonfeifer.com, JASONFEIFER. A couple things that you might want to look out for there. Number one is, so there's Problem Solvers. I also have another podcast, which is super fun, called Pessimist's Archive. It's a history of unfounded fears of innovation. So each week we look at the moment that a new piece of technology was introduced and try to understand why it freaked everyone out. I think I just said each week. That is not true, because they don't come out every week, but whatever. That's just, getting aspirational. And then also I have a newsletter, which I would be subscribe to. It's a monthly thing that I call the Feifer 5, the 5 entrepreneurial insights that excited and impressed me the most every month. So you can go check that out. And then, my email address is on there. I do look at all my emails, though. I'm going to warn you, if it looks like it was a spam email that was sent out to 500 people, then I hit delete. Otherwise, happy to be in touch.
Awesome, Jason. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. This has been fantastic, and I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.